What's good, y'all? Welcome to a special bonus episode of Conversation Piece, the podcast about the missing pieces of the conversations we're already having right here in Indianapolis. My name is Patrick. I'm your host, and today we're talking Epicurean Indy. Inspired by food festivals and open-air food markets abroad, Epicurean Indy is a celebration of Indianapolis' diverse food, music, beverage, and art community. In this episode, we sat down with 5 of the people who are making this thing happen. Artist, chef, and the person who brought all of these things together. This is Conversation Piece, Community in Conversation, Epicurean Indy. Conversation Piece, we're back here at Epicurean Indy, and I am here with one of the chefs who is making this whole thing possible. If you could tell us your name, your country of origin, your business's name, and where in the city you live.
Perfect. My name is Samir Mohammed. I'm actually born in the U.S.
Okay.
Palestinian father, Greek mother.
Okay.
And my restaurant that I own with my wife is 9th Street Bistro in Noblesville. And I live just 2 blocks away from the restaurant in Noblesville.
Okay, awesome. Born in the States. How can you talk a little bit about your experience growing up and your connection to or lack of connection to Palestinian and Greek culture in the home?
So I kind of grew up in a household where we were trying to get away from the Palestinian cultures and whatnot, trying to be more Americanized. And I think, I was submerged into that. And then as I got older, I wanted to explore more about my nationality. And and I think one way that we can really do that is through food. I fell in love with food at a very early age, 12 years old. I grew up in Taos, New Mexico, which is a small little town in northern New Mexico. And restaurants at the time growing up were very similar to what we're trying to get to now.
Gotcha.
So sourcing locally, working with local farmers and ranchers. We didn't have like Cisco and U.S. food trucks coming to our little town.
Sure.
So restaurants there were dependent on...
You had to do it yourself, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where I fell in love with food. And then I started, as I got older, deep diving into Palestinian and Greek culture and realizing there's a whole wide world of food out there from what we know.
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up in New Mexico, how did you end up in Indianapolis then?
I fell in love with a Hoosier. My wife's family is from Lafayette.
Okay.
We met in Denver, and I came to visit a few times. I loved how everything was so close, and what really attracted me to Indy was the untapped restaurant market. I saw a need for better food, changing menus, ingredients that people were not using, and the availability of all these ingredients is just right at our back door.
Okay, I like it. So as you get to Indianapolis, you see this kind of gap, you bringing your own unique lived experience to this and your desire and interest in food. When did 9th Street Bistro come about, and why was that the thing that you wanted to do to start to bridge or fill in that gap?
Yeah. Well, my wife and I had run a successful Italian restaurant in Denver with partners. It wasn't a bad deal whatsoever, but we realized that we could do a restaurant on our own. Our niche was 35 seats, smaller menu, ever-changing. We can change it once a month. And we started looking around, looked in Carmel, Zionsville, and found the space that we're in Noblesville, and just fell in love with that. It did come with some challenges. Being a Samir Mohammed in northern Indiana, getting people to come do jobs for us and service things for us was a little difficult.
Yeah.
A little bit of a culture shock moving from Denver for sure. But kind of like Youssef said, you got to put all that aside and just forge forward,
Sure.
you know? So we were determined to do what we wanted to do. We were kind of told that, you know, you can never change your menu. You have to have a pork tenderloin sandwich on your menu or a burger of some sort. And that's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So we started testing the waters a little bit, started adding different ingredients in, and we eventually got to a comfort point where we can do whatever we wanted. And people were receptive towards it, and they're flocking towards it now.
I love that. And thank you for sharing about your experience of the difficulties and challenges you faced when you first tried to open this business, again, as a Samir Mohammed in northern Indiana. I can definitely resonate with what it feels like to be ostracized because you look or you sound, your name sounds different. Anyways, I was wondering, like, how has that changed? And have the things that you identified as gaps or lack of in the food scene, has that changed in the time since you opened up 9th Street and have been here and have been navigating the scene? Have those things changed a little bit for you?
They definitely have. It's interesting in our small town, Noblesville. We've become pretty well known for having a great fine dining restaurant that actually brings a lot of people from not just Indy, but from Ohio, Michigan, all over just to come eat at the Bistro. And so I think we've built a community around that in Noblesville, and some of that you know, ostracizing kind of goes by the wayside when you can cook really good food.
Sure.
Right? And run a successful business. And I think on the food side of it, what it's done is it's opened other chefs' eyes and allowed them to try to be more creative and say, hey, if this guy in Noblesville is doing this and he's changing his menu and he's bringing in venison and local bison, then surely we can too. So I want to say that we're, you know, developing a chef and restaurant community around here too that supports each other in doing that, and you know, is also a collaborative thing where they see an ingredient differently than I do, but we can talk about it, and rather than competing, we can collaborate and pick each other's brains and come up with some really cool events.
I absolutely love that. I think that's one of the reasons Epicurean is so important, is because it really highlights the behind the scenes conversations, I think, that have been happening in terms of what it means to make a collaboration in the culinary scene. From your perspective, as those bonds have been forged, as this community has grown, is there an area that is still out of focus that we as maybe outsiders from the culinary scene can help to either bring awareness to or just be aware of when we are dining out or just navigating that scene?
Yeah, I think look for restaurants and chefs that have passion and really truly care. I don't want to foo-foo on those corporate companies that have multiple restaurants and bigger buying power. But us small business owners and small restaurants, we struggle hard. You know, and it's not just about trying to get customers in seats. It's the day-to-day problems with staffing, equipment failure, sourcing ingredients, and all of that. So I would say, you know, keep in mind when you're supporting a small local restaurant, you're supporting somebody's livelihood, not a corporation or a company's.
I love it. I love that, especially being from Indiana. It's like so important to recognize that human behind,
Right.
And especially all of the extra things that you don't see on the IGs, the social media feeds, that is happening behind the scenes, that is hectic and chaotic,
Right.
that we have to, or that you have to handle and take care of. Chef Samir, I thank you for sitting down and sharing just this little bit with us. Before I let you go, can you tell people after Epicurean where they can find you? How do they follow you? How do they support y'all going forward?
Yeah. Follow us on Instagram, 9th Street Bistro in Noblesville. Follow us for different events and collaborations that we're doing with other chefs. We're, you know, here for the long haul, and we'd really love to put Indy on the food map and let people know that we're more than pork tenderloin and cheese sauce.
More than pork tenderloin and cheese sauce here in Indiana. I'm here for it. Chef Samir, thank you so much. 9th Street Bistro in Noblesville. Get there. Epicurean Indy, conversation piece. We'll be right back.
We are back at Epicurean Indy for our community and conversation series. I am here with one of the artists, and I'd like, if you don't mind, to share your name, country of origin, business name, and where in the city you live.
So, hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Salma Taman. I'm an artist. I'm originally from Egypt. I grew up in Alexandria in the beautiful Mediterranean. And I am now based in Indianapolis, Indiana.
What part of the city do you live?
I live on the west side by Eagle Creek.
Okay.
It's a beautiful area.
I used to live over there in an apartment. I love that area. When did you or your family first immigrate to the States?
I came here in 2010.
Okay.
When I married my husband.
All right. So marriage, why Indianapolis specifically?
Oh, he was working in Indy here at IU when I met him.
Okay.
I met him in Egypt, but then I moved.
He originally from Indianapolis?
From Germany, actually.
From Germany. Interesting.
What are the chances?
All right. Well, we're going to have a full episode about that. Tell us about the art that you do, and if you could tell us a little bit about how you got into that specific style of art.
It's actually a funny story. So I think my signature style would be large portraits. They are not classical. They are abstract, crazy colors, very vibrant, and they sometimes have Arabic calligraphy.
Okay.
And I use a lot of gold leaf, and I try to integrate a lot of other materials. So, because I like the depth and the different textures. And so normally I will try to integrate as many, textures as possible.
Yeah.
That's what I like to do.
Okay.
You asked me something else that I forgot.
Well, when did you first get into large portraiture and texture?
Right. So I actually, originally, I'm a lawyer. I'm a family lawyer. And when I first came to the States, I didn't have, I came on a student visa, and so I couldn't work.
Okay.
And to keep myself busy, I started dabbling in art. And so I remember the first time I moved into our house when I saw my husband's office, and he had a lot of really nicely arranged paints and unfinished paintings because he was also dabbling. I said, can I finish those for you? And the rest is history.
Okay.
He said, you're very good. You should do your own things. And then I started painting.
Okay, I love that. Starting in collaboration in community, even if it's with your husband.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. What has been your perspective on the art community and the creative community here in Indianapolis since you've been here?
Yeah, well, I am happy to report that I felt welcomed the moment I started reaching out to fellow artists. I felt like the community really welcomed me with open arms. And I appreciate this because when you leave everything behind, you don't know anyone and you need all the guidance you can get. And so this community has really embraced me. I am very, very grateful because I know that when I need help or when I need support, I know that I will get it. And that is not something that I take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. How about connecting to community and your culture of origin, Egyptian culture? How have you been able to find or maybe not find any of that here in Indianapolis as you navigated the city?
I have a small group of Egyptian friends that I have chosen as my chosen family. And they are everywhere. But I also think that one of the beautiful things about being in the U.S. is that you try to reach out to everyone as chosen family. Basically, if they're nice people, they're part of my family, regardless of where they come from, right? Yeah. So I haven't really been focused on finding other Egyptians. I just collect good friends, good community members around me. And yes, I do have some Egyptian friends, but my focus has really been to just reach out to others.
Well, it's always the and. It's the both and. It's who can I find within that resonates with my experience and who can I find outside of that we are just good people and we can connect
and it has been wonderful. It really has.
I love that. How do you fuse when you're creating large portraitures, when you are finding textures to work with, is there a way that you're tapping into culture or heritage in that way to bring that art here, especially in a city like Indianapolis that maybe doesn't have a lot of connection to Egypt or anywhere outside of ourselves?
Yes, absolutely. So I always say that it's so important to remember where one comes from. For me, I always say that forgetting, where I come from or my heritage or what made me who I am is almost like a betrayal. Because in Egypt, growing up, I had a wonderful childhood and the people are fantastic. And I had a very strong relation with my father, who was a master of the Arabic language, and that's where calligraphy comes from.
Okay.
So in every painting, where my paintings are normally based on a poetic verse, and that's why sometimes I will integrate the calligraphy of that verse. And that comes absolutely from my father and from his love for poetry. So when I write in Arabic calligraphy, I am absolutely honoring him and remembering everything he taught me. And to me, that is a way of immortalizing him in my canvases. Even if you don't know what the painting is based on, I know.
Yeah. That is so beautiful because it's not just like your community or culture or country of origin, it's your family that is weaved into each piece.
Yes.
That then people who may not know when they buy a piece of yours can still take that home, and then your story, your family, the way that you've ventured out into the world then ventures out even further.
Exactly.
I love that. What about Indy do you love? What's one thing that you are just passionate about the city that you've adopted?
Well, I think that one of the, I'll start with the problem. The problem is when you talk
that was my next question.
The problem when you talk to people about Indy is that they always tend to say, well, it's only Indy, it's average, and I think that's a problem because when I first moved here, I grew up watching American movies.
Yeah.
And so to me, America meant New York, Chicago, big cities. And when I moved to Indy, I thought, oh my gosh, Indiana is Egypt in the 70s. Because we have a great nightlife in Egypt. We party like crazy. And here, restaurants close at 9. And that, to me, was the cultural shock.
Yeah.
And so I learned, at the beginning, I thought, okay, Sleepy Town, Indiana, that was a bad decision. Maybe we should move back to Egypt. But as I learned about people and I met people, I realized that I'm plugged. I'm unplugged. I am out of the network. That's why I don't know what's going on.
Sure.
So what I love about Indy is that it's a diamond in the rough. It's a little gem hidden. Our weather is great. I mean, it's not extreme in any way. It has the community if you look for it. It has the events if you know where to find them. But it's not for everyone. And it's like alchemy. If alchemy was easy, everybody would do it, and then it wouldn't be so special. So I love that it's a hidden gem.
Okay.
And I am exactly where I want to be. I wouldn't change a thing.
I love it. Hidden gem, and then the way that we talk about Indy in Indiana needs
so
to change.
important.
We can improve.
It has
100%.
to change, yes.
Salma, thank you so much for sitting down. Thank you for being a part of this community, being part of Epicurean Indy. Last but not least, before we let you go, how do people find you? How do they follow you? How do they support you after Epicurean?
Thank you. That's a great question. I am on Instagram always. And you can find me at salmataman.art. Come and find me, follow me, and let's stay in touch.
All right, let's do it. You heard it here. Get on Instagram, follow Salma, make sure you support her art, and make sure you continue to support the amazing community that's here, that she is a part of. Epicurean Indy, conversation piece. We'll be right back. Epicurean Indy, conversation piece. We are back, and I am here with one of the chefs making this entire thing possible. Can you let us know your name, your country of origin, your business's name, and where in the city you live?
Yes, my name is Tyler Shortt. I was born in Indiana, so the States. Work at Tinker Street Restaurant, and I live on the east side in Little Flower.
Okay, I'm here for it. Can I ask you, since you were born here in Indiana, can I ask your cultural background?
Yeah, I am, believe, German, Scottish, English. So.
Okay, Cool.
That's about it. Yeah.
German, Scottish, English. I would say a classic Midwestern makeup,
Yes,
particularly
for
in
sure.
Indiana.
Yes, very white. Yes,
all-
I'll say that.
Very
Yeah.
white. It's all good. We are a diverse community here
Yes.
in the city. Do you know, or do you have a familial history on like why your family came to Indiana or ended up in Indiana specifically?
Yeah. So my dad's side of the family was originally like in Virginia area in Kentucky. They worked in coal mines, things like that. Traveled to around the Lawrenceburg area, Ohio, Indiana borderline, and then we ended up in Indiana, Indianapolis. So,
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
All right, so Tinker Street chef,
Yes.
what got you into culinary in the first place? Like, what was the drive, the passion, the love for food?
Food has always been kind of a main staple with my family.
Okay.
And so I kind of grew up on Southern comfort, soul food. I had, aunts, grandmothers teaching me how to make gravy at the age of 10, things like that. So, it was always a focal point. I remember going to like a farm on the roads on the side of the country and, getting a bag of green beans and other vegetables. And, I didn't get to go play with the men at that time because I was so young. So I had to cook with my aunts and grandmothers and stuff like that. So it was just, that was always kind of a focal point. Then I went to school, tried IUPUI out, was not a good student. And so I had to pick between trades and I chose culinary. And I didn't really take it seriously until I went to New York and came back to work in New York. And I was like, okay, I can make this into a career.
Okay.
So,
Two questions.
yes.
Best, or what's the thing that people get wrong about gravy that they need to get right when making it?
Not enough flour. I like my sausage kind of chunkier. I feel like people break up their sausage too much. And I add hot sauce.
Okay. My man, this
Gotta
is the
add
guy
some
after my
Franks
heart
to
right
it,
here.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and then you said you started taking it serious when you came back from New York. What
Yes.
happened in New York that was like, that showed you this is something that I can do and should be doing?
So I was blessed to work at a restaurant called 11 Madison Park in New York. So my cousin was chef de cuisine there. He was second in charge. They were on the San Pellegrino's list. I think they were number 6 when I was there in the world. And so I got to see, just the makeup of all different cultures, all different cuisine styles and everything come together. And, being able to see the difference of how you can actually come up with a dish, plate a dish, and turn it actually into art as well. Not just, something from your mind or your soul.
Right.
So, going there, walking around the city, everything else, experiencing, every block was different. Each vibe, culture, everything else. So it was beautiful to see and came back here. And, I had some opportunities to stay in New York, to go to Chicago, to go to LA. But the cost of living and everything, so much nicer here. And,
That it is.
And also when I went to Chicago, I was like, we can do this. We can do this in Indy.
Yeah.
We have the same produce. We're local to me kind of is regional as well. And so, they get the same produce that we get. And in my mind, they just have maybe more financial backing, a little bit larger space, and a lot more people cooking in those kitchens. But we can definitely cook just as good. And I think, Epicurean is here to show that too.
I think it's really exciting, and I appreciate you sharing that because it's really indicative of how people can be maybe not lured, but enticed by the big city.
Yeah.
And then find their way to the understanding that, I can do this here where I'm from, and then be willing to come back and bring it here. What about that? So you take that experience, and then you also have your upbringing here with your family and that initial foundation of food. Bringing those two things together, when you come back from New York to Indy, what are you seeing as a gap for yourself that you'd like to fill within this larger culinary community?
I think for me, it's combining the local produce that we get and the local vendors, which we have a lot of great producers that do beautiful things, and also bringing that into the different cuisines and cultures that we have in the city. You know, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily use farmed produce.
Sure.
But I think trying to find a way to bring those backgrounds and those cultures and dishes and make those more mainstream, and also, you know, things that you can get at your local farmer's market or anything like that, where it's like, yeah, you're at home, you can make a butter chicken dish or anything like that very simply, especially in the summertime with local produce.
That's come up a couple times in these conversations that we've had for Epicurean, the idea and the concept of local produce. I think that's obviously really important. And I think Indiana is known for producing things, but then like exporting it out, I think. And we're not necessarily thinking about the Indiana culinary community tapping into that backdoor, like local produce availability. Right. What's something that people need to just understand about that local produce thing that's just there? Like, what do we need to know that we're missing right now?
A lot of people think that, you know, it's too expensive, or, you know, they don't know what to do with these items.
Sure.
But it's very easy to come up. I mean, kohlrabi, for example, you can use in multiple different applications. You can use it as a slaw, for example. But many people don't know what kohlrabi is, how to work with kohlrabi.
I don't know what kohlrabi is. Whoops.
So, you know, no, that's all good. So, I mean, like, just bringing, I guess, that knowledge to people, and letting them know, like, yeah, you can use this and manipulate the flavors in this kind of way as well.
Is there a good way that we're not tapping into now to help disseminate some of that knowledge and information about the local produce and stuff? And then not only that, but how to use it?
I think it's more of just getting it out there more. I think, and having people, you know, realize that. I think
just a simple fact about talking about it. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, there's chefs around the city like Samir from 9th Street Bistro, Youssef, I mean, a handful of chefs that use local produce, and we know how to, you know, work with that. But I think it's more of just like, we don't have the time to go set up at a farmer's market and just be like, hey, you can do this or that with the produce that you can get from this. So I think just making it more aware and like spreading the knowledge of what the farmers make, what the local producers make, you know.
And then for like somebody coming up in this culinary community who wants to get into it but doesn't really know where to start, what do they need to know about sourcing locally? Like, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them about that as they get started?
So we reopened Tinker Street in 2021, and so after COVID, there was a lot of producers that kind of fell off as well. And so myself and a few other chefs, before we opened, we went to the farmers markets, if you can find time to do that, and just, you know, shook hands, passed business cards. Hey, you produce this, your watermelon looks beautiful, any way that you would wholesale to us. And just starting that conversation that way. And, you know, another way is just please reach out to Tinker Street and contact me. And I would love to give anybody the farmers' contacts and everything else, because, you know, it's a community. We need to raise it all together.
Beautiful. So. Perfect. Excellent segue for their first podcast guest appearance
thank you.
What we were going to end on. But thank you so much, Chef Tyler, for sharing everything that you shared. And I think you dropped a lot of really good gems here for especially aspiring chefs and culinary makers and creators. For people that want to reach out to you and learn and get these connections, how do they find you? How do they follow you? And then how do they support you and Tinker Street going forward after Epicurean?
So you can follow us on Instagram at Tinker Street Indy, and then always just call the restaurant. Reach out that way. Yeah.
Youssef gave out his address. If you want to give out your personal cell phone, you can, and we'll call you directly.
Maybe I won't do all that, but, you know.
All good.
Maybe the next one.
Maybe the next one. All right. You heard it here. Maybe the next one you'll get those digits. But until then, this has been Conversation Piece. We're here at Epicurean Indy, and we are going to be back. Make sure you check out Tinker Street, but we'll be right back. Conversation Piece. We are back at Epicurean Indy, and I am here with one of the artists today. Can you tell us your name, your country of origin, your business's name, and where in the city you live?
Sure. My name is Aisling Barrett, but I go by Ash. Country of origin is Ireland. said with a very Irish accent, obviously. My business name is Push and Posies, and I currently live in Fountain Square.
Okay, I love it. When did you or your family first immigrate from Ireland to the States?
I've kind of floated back and forth to the States.
Okay.
So I lived the early part of my life in New York City with my whole family. And then we all moved back to Ireland when I was 15. Lived there till I was 25, moved to Australia for 5 years, and then moved back to the States in 2020.
Okay, having you on the podcast, registering that for later. Why Indiana or Indianapolis specifically?
Well, I actually came here to visit a childhood friend of mine who was doing some nonprofit work here. And I was really surprised by the queer community here, actually. It was really cool to see that it was a smaller city, but I felt more comfortable within the queer community here than I was feeling in New York sometimes, and definitely in Australia as well. So yeah, I came for 5 days and then I went back to Brooklyn and said, nope, I got to move to Indy. So I moved here 3 weeks later.
Okay, definitely going to have you on the podcast to dive into that, because I don't think I've ever heard anyone say what you just said about the queer community here. Or that there's safety here in a way that you may not feel in a larger city that has a more robust community.
Yeah, it's surprising, but it's really awesome. I'm really lucky to have found that.
So when did you get into florals and push and posies? Like, when did that all come about? How did that interest form? What's the history there?
So I always kind of had an interest in flowers. My grandmother used to kind of have a garden, and that was, I don't know, just nice to grow up around flowers. But the pandemic really triggered it for me. I was losing my mind, not working. I also work in hospitality. So like hospitality workers, we're just like, go, go, go. So I needed something to do. And for exercise, I've always ridden a bike. It's my main source of transportation. I don't drive. So I decided to just keep biking around New York City and kept coming across all these bodegas with beautiful flowers. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to teach myself how to arrange flowers. So once a week I would go, I'd buy some fresh flowers and then arrange them and rearrange them every day until they died, basically. And then I would dry them out. My house is full of dried flowers. But yeah, it kind of just triggered this thing for me where it was really relaxing. And it was an escape from the reality of the pandemic. And that's what started it.
I love it. How does that become, so how does it go from an escape to, okay, I think I might be able to do this as at least a side business, if not something I can pursue?
Yeah, I mean, I really just, I work as an event director as well. And I realized that I was offering to do flowers for people's events and I was having a lot of fun with that. And then I just kept thinking about this idea of like how nice it would be to see somebody riding a bicycle with flowers and just selling them like on the cultural trail.
Sure.
And then I just thought, well, why can't I do that? So yeah, I just ride my bike. I have my baskets and I fill it with flowers and I just deliver them. It just felt like something that would make people happy to see as well. And it's me getting my exercise and doing a thing I love to do.
Well, now you become a staple on the trail of, hey, there is Ash riding her bike, delivering some flowers. Yeah,
people definitely, especially around Fountain Square, would like be used to seeing me on my bike at the very least. So yeah.
So you said that your grandmother, I believe, was the one who kind of sparked a little bit of this passion in florals. How do you, or is there a way that you weave Irish culture and heritage into the work that you do? Is that something that for you is important to tap into, or is something that you explore separately from business?
I mean, it definitely contributes because I grew up around so many amazing wildflowers in Ireland. Like the sides of the roads are just these gorgeous oranges and pinks and purples. And so I find that my style of arranging is very based around wild and like organic style of arranging as well. I mean, for Epicurean, I basically have this plan of incorporating Irishness in terms of using the claddagh, which is this symbol of love, friendship, and loyalty. It's a really classic Irish symbol. And flowers have a language. Floriography has been around since Victorian times. So flowers have meaning, which is another thing I'm really interested in. So basically creating bouquets that are based around Irish heritage is like how I'm melding it together.
Yeah. Floriography. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's very cool.
Okay, this is turning into a full podcast
Yeah,
episode.
sorry.
No, do not apologize. I'm just getting excited. So as somebody who dabbles in this particular creative aspect, who's also works in hospitality for a restaurant, who is involved in culinary, what is your perspective on these particular scenes melding together, like in the form of Epicurean and other events? What is your perspective on like what is missing or lacking and what you would like to see more of in these spaces as a floral artist and as somebody who is, tangentially attached to or directly attached to these other industries?
Yeah, I mean, I think in Indy in particular, I was pretty surprised within the hospitality scene to see how people who work in restaurants here don't visit other restaurants all the time or visit other bars all the time, which that's such a big part of culture in Ireland and in Sydney. Like you support your friends who work in those industries. And so again, going back to the queer community, I feel like I really rely on like my chosen family and like my community because they support me so much. And we try and support each other within the arts. I have many friends who are, artists or are in the drag scene, things like that. So I think it's really just like there's this little piece missing within hospitality it's coming together, but it's just still not quite there, where I don't think people in Indianapolis realize like this is a growing city. Like in order for it to continue to grow, we all need to continue to support each other.
Yeah.
We need to show up for each other.
Do you think that is a competitive thing? Do you think that's I've talked a lot about in the show previously about scarcity mindset, like in this idea that there's not enough when there clearly is.
Yeah.
Is it something like that? Is it just the simple fact that we're burgeoning and growing?
Yeah.
Do you have is there any one or multiple answers that we could put on it?
I mean, I don't really know what the full answer is. I think it's maybe just this thing of like the Midwest mentality of like we're just out here doing our small town thing, but it's like, well, not really anymore.
Sure.
Indy is growing, and I've only been here since 2021, so I'm very new. But it's definitely one of those things where you can feel there's like this hesitancy to grow too fast because you don't want to lose the culture of something. And so that definitely exists in Indy as well, where I think people are like, whoa, slow it down. And also the pandemic, just, it really changed the pace of things and the pace of growth. So
that was a great Midwestern impression of, I'm just doing my thing. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers because I'm like that. So, Ash, I appreciate you sharing. I'm excited for people to find out about all the stuff that you do and to start saying hi and waving at you on the cultural trail when you were delivering your flowers. For folks who are finding out about you now, post Epicurean, how do we follow you? How do we find you? How do we support you going forward?
Well, I'm on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Push and Posies. And I mean, come to Bluebeard. I'm there all of the time. So yeah, you can find me there too.
I'm almost positive I know you from Bluebeard when I brought an author there to stay in the loft.
Yes.
I
definitely would have organized that.
Now I'm like, okay, I recognize you now. Okay, Ash, thank you so much. Excited to have a further conversation on another episode of the show. But for now, conversation piece, Epicurean Indy. We'll be right back. Conversation piece. We are back at Epicurean Indy, and I am here with the man, the myth, the legend himself. I'm not going to introduce him. He's going to introduce himself. Can you tell the people your name, your country of origin, your business name, and where in the city you currently live?
My name is Youssef Boudarine, and I work at Bluebeard, and I run a virtual business called J'adore Pastry and food scene, and we do a lot of community pop-up collaboration with chefs and small minority business, and I'm originally from Morocco.
Where in the city, where in Indianapolis do you live right now?
So right now I just moved the Meridian and 22nd. My address exactly you want it is 122 apartment A.
Perfect bleep. That's a perfect bleep right
Come
there.
knock the door, say hi. We are welcoming community, so I'm not worried about it.
When did you and or your family first immigrate to the States?
I moved here. I came as tourist first time in 2015. I moved officially like 2016 by myself.
Okay.
And I moved from France. Before that, I was in Spain, and I moved from Morocco when I was 17.
Okay.
And I've been just like traveling, like food scene and art, and till I end up here in Indiana.
Why Indianapolis specifically?
That's the question I get all the time, actually. And I came here to help my business for opening in New York, also called La Durée. Then I came to visit my best friend since high school. Actually, he lived here. So when I come visit him, I kind of like the city a little bit. So I someone connected with the cake bake, and I stayed here and I started like developing and helping few businesses. And then I started seeing a lot of gaps, but I keep doing it. Then last 2 years, I changed the whole vibe because I don't want to do the same thing that's what's people do in Indiana. I want to like be me, and I start doing just like pop-up collaboration. And I want to bring like not more culture, but I want to bring my culture and whatever I feel better. And it's been paid off so far, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, 100%. You're known for, or at least I know you to be known for your pastries, your baking, J'adore, like that stuff. When we talked earlier, we talked about you being quote unquote the mayor in the food scene because you do a lot of community-based things. You do a lot of connecting, helping people where they're at. What about community is so important to you when it comes to food and culinary?
I mean, it's really, really important. Like I born in really small town in Morocco, and we are really connected. Like, you know your neighbor, you know people like living 3 blocks from you, you know them very well. And like when you dad like go work in the farm, and if you want to buy stuff, you go to the store and buy stuff, then you don't pay. It's just like, hey, my dad is coming in 2 weeks, he will pay you. And it's fine. And everything was like trusted, and people, and the food and the art, I believe these two things bring people together all the time. So I said like, I'm gonna focus in same thing, whatever I like to do since Morocco or France. And I started doing like collaboration with a lot of businesses, and we use just our social media, me and my friend Ariel, and it became big and nonstop. So people, they say like, I don't sleep. I sleep well. It's just like I'm active.
When you're awake, you're getting stuff done.
Yeah, I'm just active and being in the community and working with chefs like Alan from Bluebeard, Samir from Nice Street Bistro, Tyler from Tinker, Nicole Tyler or Bodhi, all this collaboration, fun stuff. It helps me as a person, and also inspire other people to do so. And that's why like me and Madeline, we do collaboration nonstop with all the people, they get it.
Yeah.
And that's why we create Epicurean, because we see there is a huge gap in Indiana about diversity and welcoming immigrants, not see them just as immigrant, but there is a lot of arts, there is a lot of artists, a lot of genius immigrant that they do really good thing for the city. And I just found out through my pop-ups, every day I meet someone like, wow, that's interesting. Like, you make me inspired. Like Salma, the artist, the Egyptian, she's one of the amazing artists in Indiana.
Right.
And she's Egyptian, and she loved the city. She loved where she came from. So all of that is inspiring to me. Like Samir, just with his exotic name, Samir Mohammed, and whatever he did at Noblesville is insane. So that's inspiration as well. So that's why I said, I'm going to create this Epicurean, because I need to.
I love it. And that was going to be my next question, because you mentioned the gaps. And I think community is part of building community is identifying the gap. And then the community that you build is to fill that. So you talked about the gap in the immigrant experience in the culinary scene here in Indianapolis. Can you speak just a little bit more to that and why it's important for us to have events like Epicurean that highlight that immigrant experience?
So Epicurean is only 1% whatever we need in Indiana, honestly. Like, this is the start, and I will do it, and I will keep doing it And with the help I have from all the people, because when I reach out to all the chefs and the artists and a lot of organization, the first answer I got is yes, yes, yes. Like a lot of people didn't even hear about the vision why.
It's not what do you need, it's oh yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, yes.
And now
yeah,
what do
and-
you need? Yeah.
Yeah. So I said like, wow. So that's mean people see that there is this gap. So how we can make it big? So I reached out to Visit Indy from my friend Morgan, and I told her like, this is what I'm doing, but I need you to help me invite like food writer or food critic from not from Indiana, from different states, to see that Indiana is not just Midwest, is
Right.
not just like white area, like there is no diversity. I want people to talk about us from different states that actually there is a lot of diversity in Indiana. There is a lot of people care about the city, care about the country. And end of the day, we try just to do a good thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes we don't make money from it, but at least when I go home, I go like sleep well because
Exactly.
I did something cool for the community.
Well, I think that's one of the beautiful things about this particular event, and something that I was inspired by from you in our last conversation was the idea that we need this and I'm just going to do it. I'm not
Yes.
going to ask for permission, or I'm not going to wait for somebody to say, here's the money to do it. I'm
Yes.
just going to do it and make it happen. When it comes to putting your foot down and just saying, I'm going to make this work, what is the goal that you have in mind for yourself beyond just the visibility that you can carry into year 2, year 3 to make sure Epicurean and the immigrant experience is continued to be highlighted?
Yeah. So the goal for me is to open the door to the future immigrants. We get a lot of refugees, a lot of immigrants, and I heard some stories from some refugees that they are really talented. There is one of them, he was like start doing pilot and he's a refugee now. And when I see that he can find like job here because he doesn't have like social security or paper or whatever, he's just like waiting for that. I need to open the door and hold it open to the future immigrant that they are coming to Indiana to bring their culture, to be welcoming. As me, when I moved here, no one welcomed me. In the last 2 years, I started welcoming myself, by myself, to connect with people,
Sure.
make collaboration, and I always found the door open for me to do collaboration like easy, and we make it fun. And when I reach out to chefs to do like dinner with James Beard with me, they all say yes, like
Yeah.
easy yes, and because they know they care about people also, they care about food, they know what they're missing. But if you keep waiting for someone else to do it for us, it will never happen. So we are the people and we are doing it and we will keep doing it. And we believe in people as the key of making it happen.
Well, I believe in it too, and that's one of the reasons I had to be a part of this in some form or fashion. Youssef, I appreciate you sitting
Thank you.
down with me and sharing some of this. Excited for people to experience Epicurean afterwards. When this is all said and done, how do they follow you? How do they find you? How do they support you?
I mean, to support me, just support other businesses, honestly. That's the big support for me. Support, like, believe in immigrant or diversity. Believe in local chefs, like Tyler from Tinker Street. He's a local, but he love whatever he's doing. He's attached to a farmer and he's welcoming as well. Samir, like Steve Oakley, like local chef that I invite that they get it. They want it to happen. And like I say, every time I ask about something, they're always helping me somehow. And also, like I say, Visit Indy with Morgan. She's always say yes. Rev, Carol Howard, she's like the biggest support of me. Like she even like support our event and she bought almost 15 tickets for her friends. So when you see that community, that people, they want it to happen, they want to help you, that means a lot to me. And whatever I did in the last 2 years, I will take the credit for it.
Well, we will give you the credit
Thank
for
you.
sure. Youssef, the mayor, Boudarine here, Epicurean Indy. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you so much for
Everybody
having me.
check everything out. Follow Jador on Instagram and follow this man because you can support him and the other businesses as well. Conversation piece, Epicurean Indy. We'll be right back.
Thank you all so much for tapping in with us for Epicurean Indy. Shout out to everybody who came in and shared so much about what makes this culinary, this art and music scene so incredible here in Indianapolis. I want to give a special shout out to my videographer, Mike Lee, for not only capturing these interviews, but for popping out at the event that I could not personally attend and capturing so much of the energy and the vibe and everything that made Epicurean Indy an incredible success. Shout out to Youssef Boudarine for being willing to take the risk in starting something like this. Shout out to all the partners and sponsors who stepped up to the plate to support this effort. And then shout out to my team, Mike Lee, John Overton and Popular Rapture, Madeline McKinnon and Frida's Flowers, for continuing to help me do the things that we do here at Conversation Piece. If you want to catch up to this episode and every other episode that we have, you can go to YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts. Go to conversationpiecepod.com to check out the full archives of all the episodes that you may have missed, catch up on everything else that we have going on with the show, and to sign up for our newsletter that comes out every week, Conversation Piece, the newsletter. If you want to follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Conversation Piece Pod. And last but not least, we got a lot of really cool stuff coming up, including that merch. So conversationpiecepod.com. Don't forget it. Put it in your phone. Put it next to my name. I'm not going to give you my name or my phone number, but you already have my name. So put my website there. And until then, this has been Conversation Piece, community and conversation. See y'all soon.